Man, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of EOS. It's 10 out of Jake, man. I'm rocking with y'all rocking with me. And for this video, I'm going to be speaking on an inmate that was brutally beaten inside of a New York prison. He ended up committing suicide. But the charges that led him to prison might make you feel a little bit less sympathetic. Dante Taylor was 22 years young when he was viciously beaten in a New York State prison by correctional institution staff. He went to prison in 2016, checking many mental health boxes for chronic risk factors associated with suicide. He reported he'd been physically and sexually abused as a child, confined in a psychiatric facility as a teenager, and had attempted suicide in 2009 when he attempted to hang himself at his grandmother's home, and again in 2014. A year after graduating high school, he'd be discharged from the United States Marines after another attempted hanging. In the weeks leading up to him being beaten in prison, his wife had divorced him, his grandfather had passed, and the life sentence without the possibility of parole caused him to attempt suicide yet again during his 4-month stay in solitary confinement. He'd expressed to his family how he was harassed by prison staff and felt as though he was a burden to his family. On October 5th, 2017, Dante had a negative reaction to synthetic cannabis, also known as K2, in which he was placed on suicide watch after stating he was going to harm himself. He'd be sent back to his cell the next morning. October 6th, he'd experience another negative reaction, having multiple seizures inside of his cell. Inmates in nearby cells getting the attention of prison staff, but instead of being placed on suicide watch again, multiple correction officers beat him with fists and batons, pummeling him, as inmates in nearby cells could hear the thudding and smacking sounds of batons and boots. He was screaming in pain until he went unconscious. Then they hog-tied him by his hands and feet with zip ties that was so tight they'd cause small lacerations on his wrists and ankles, before throwing him face down a flight of stairs to the first floor. He'd be treated for multiple blunt force injuries in an outside hospital before being transferred back to the prison and placed in the infirmary. He was suffering from pain, finding difficulty in eating, even breathing. He'd asked to speak with the mental health unit and to contact his family, but both requests were denied. 12 hours from the time Dante was beaten, he commits suicide by hanging himself inside of his cell. His body found in a seated position on the floor, a bed sheet wrapped around his neck, tied to the toilet grab rail. Since then, his mother filed a lawsuit against the prison and all staff involved for the abuse and treatment of her suicidal son. But his son's crimes may change a person's perspective as to if what he suffered, he deserved. In the summer of 2014, a 21-year-old Long Island mother named Sarah Good disappeared, her family reporting her missing, handing out flyers to nearby neighbors. Her car was found near a wooded area not far from where she lived with her 4-year-old daughter. Almost a week after she vanished, searchers found her partially decomposed body within a mile from where her car was found. A month later, 19-year-old Dante Taylor was arrested. She'd rejected him at a party. A bloody handprint was found in her car, and text messages between them from the night of the murder linked him to the crime. Taylor was arrested but later released after it was learned that police had taken fingerprints, DNA, and cell phone evidence without probable cause and had questioned him without reading him his rights. He was arrested again a month later on unrelated charges in Vero Beach, Florida, and extradited for trial. The prosecutor described the gory scene police found inside of her car to a courtroom filled with 50 of her family members. She'd been brutally raped, beaten, and stabbed more than 40 times, leaving a piece of metal embedded in her skull. Her half-naked body then dumped in the woods. A series of Crime Stopper tips had named potential killers. Police also destroyed a threatening message from the victim's boyfriend, who she recently had broken up with. But the courts were able to secure a conviction of murder and rape, sentencing Dante Taylor to life without the possibility of parole, and he died a year later. Sarah's family responding to the news on Facebook with this comment: "The monster who so violently ended Sarah's young life will no longer breathe another breath, will no longer see another day, will no longer have the privilege of living a life. Something he made certain she could not do. Sarah's beauty is eternal. Her laugh is unforgettable. Her memories are carved in the hearts of all whom she met." Now, after researching this video, personally, I feel that if he was killed by inmates, if he was stabbed on a yard, no matter how many times, everyone would feel it was justified. Nobody would care. Nobody would care because of what he did and who he did it to. He killed a young female, a young mother. But due to the fact that he was abused by police, which led him to suicide, people have a huge problem with the police, the guards, being involved, regardless of what the person did that they're doing something to. People in a position of power should not be doing that, period. And there should be even worse consequences for someone that is already in a position of power to abuse that power. Because that could be your son, your brother, your father, your uncle inside of prison that is beaten by the staff, either resulting in his death or causing him to commit suicide because he wasn't given the proper treatment and supervision. Now, Dante did have an appeal inside of the courts, appealing his conviction. And like it said, there were other potential suspects. From what I read, it didn't say the handprint was his, but that they found a bloody handprint. The motive was that he was rejected. But I'm assuming that the DNA that they recovered linked him to the crime. But because of the fact that they didn't go about it the right way, it was thrown out and they still got a conviction. Look, if he did it and inmates killed him, I wouldn't feel sympathetic. You know what I mean? He was suicidal based on things that haunted him in his past. And he was suicidal based on the fact that he's never going home and he committed a disgusting crime. But the fact that the police, the guards, the COs were able to get away with what they did, that's an issue for me. Regardless of what he did, because they could be doing those same type of things to anyone else inside of that prison. I don't believe they targeted him based off of his crime. I believe that they targeted him based off the fact that he made them work a little bit harder than they normally have to do. And it's something that I've seen inside of the Florida Department of Corrections time and time again. You want to go psych, you want to play crazy, they're going to make you work for it. They're going to beat the shit out of you. They're going to gas you, because that causes a lot of people to change their mind. There's a ton of paperwork they have to fill out. They got to write reports about the whole entire thing. So if you're going to make them work, they're going to make you go through it. And that's what I believe happened. That the guards at that facility have been abusive. And this was just another case that was exposed because of the fact that he committed suicide. But let me know y'all thoughts in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think about the entire case. And what do y'all think can be done to stop COs abusing inmates and denying the treatment that will keep inmates alive regardless of the crimes that placed them there? Because if they have the ability to do this to him, they have the ability to do this to anyone else. It's 1090 Jake. I'm rocking with y'all. Y'all rocking with me. Till next time.